Hi, everyone. I'm Kalila Reynolds, and welcome to another live edition of Taking Stock. We're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. Also want to know, are you part of the Money Mission community yet? If not, what are you waiting for? Go to moneymission.mn.co, or you can click the link in the description or the comments to join. Also reminding you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the chat where you are joining us from this evening. I want to know in the comments what part of Jamaica and what part of the world. We've got a great show lined up for you. So here's a look at what's coming up, followed by what's hot in business. And of course, come on, let's get this money.
It's been a rough year for the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The exchange is one of the worst performing this year after being hailed as the best performing in 2019. And there's only been one IPO so far this year. How does the JSE plan to turn things around? Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, joins us to discuss. And the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. International credit rating agency S&P Global upgraded Jamaica's credit rating from a B+ to a BB-. That's our best rating ever. What does this mean for Jamaica? We'll discuss. But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. Jamaica last week received its highest ever grade from credit rating agency S&P Global. The agency upgraded Jamaica's rating from a B+ to a BB- with a stable economic outlook. It's also the best rating Jamaica has received since S&P Global began rating the country's debt in 1999. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said the improved rating gives the government the ability to negotiate better terms for financing, which will save Jamaicans more money in the long term. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says motorists will be able to use the Maypen to Williamsfield leg of Highway 2000 toll-free until the end of the year. The Prime Minister made the announcement during the official opening of the new stretch of highway. Motorists will begin paying toll fees on December 31, 2023. The toll fees for the highway, which will reduce travel time between Kingston and the western end of the island, have not yet been announced. Veteran businessman and insurance pioneer Dr. R. Danny Williams has died. He was 89 years old. According to a statement from Sagicor, Williams died on Saturday in Miami, Florida. He was the founder of Jamaica's first domestically owned life insurance company, Life of Jamaica, which is now Sagicor Life Jamaica. Williams also served as a cabinet minister during the 1970s. Sagicor Group CEO Christopher Zaka said Williams was deeply loved and respected by colleagues and leaves behind a tremendous legacy. Some 13,000 auto workers in the United States went on strike last week at 3 major plants after wage negotiations failed. The workers are all members of the United Auto Workers Union and work with automakers General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. According to union leaders, they began negotiations 2 months ago, but the companies stalled until 2 weeks, just days before workers' contracts were set to expire. The union is requesting a 40% pay increase over 4 years along with better benefits. In the meantime, General Motors and Ford have announced temporary layoffs because of supply shortages caused by the strikes. What's Hot was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
I see you, waiting for me. You're in my reach, but I have to have a little extra push to get close to you. Are you flirting with me? You want me to come get you, but you won't fall into my lap. You want me to show you that I want you. You want me to be responsible and proactive. Okay, I'm coming.
This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy.
Welcome back. Welcome back. First, let me shout out those of you who have joined us early this evening. So, starting with Kish, who's always tuning in live from London, and he's curious to hear what Mrs. Street Forrest has to say about the performance of the JSC. We got Canada in the building. We got Portmore in the building. Nevada is here. Cash Wayne's looking forward to the discussion. Earl says, I have to reach school early. Is this school? Is this what you're referring to as school? Because yes, you will learn a lot this evening. We got Portmore in the building. Greetings from Kingston 19. Kingston checking in. Spanish Town checking in. School bell ring. Yes, ting-a-ling-a-ling. School bell ring. Knife and fork, a fight, we don't play. So we are looking forward to that discussion with Mrs. Street Forrest. She was backstage just now, and she's having some difficulty with her connection, her device connection. So we lost her. So what we're going to do is flip the show around this evening and start with our analyst segment. And there's a lot of things to discuss in the news this week. So let me introduce our panel. I'm joined by Clive Charlton, equity trader at JMMB, and financial blogger Jillian Jackson. Welcome, Clive and Jillian.
Hi, good evening.
Evening. Thanks for having me again.
Great to see you guys.
Yes,
Great to see
here.
you.
Great to be here.
All right. So we have a couple of scheduled topics, but we also have a couple of unscheduled things. So today, Clive, and you watch the market, you're an equities trader. Today was the first day of trading for 1GS, which is the first IPO of the year. It ended the day at $1.14. So not as strong as we have become accustomed to seeing. But typically in the past few years have been seeing, day one trading would max out at the 130, which is the limit. So what do you make of 1GS's first day performance?
I think it did fairly well. I think it did fairly well. The volume that traded, probably about 14, 15 million units. It is way below what we're used to, the average, for the typical, high intensity, IPO. However, there are some things that has overshadowed that, and really the macroeconomic environment still has a big impact on people's behavior. The shortness of liquidity, our liquidity crisis, it affects individual investors. So they have less available investable fund. That's one. Two, the analysis done by several brokers was favorable, but I think a little bit muted. The valuation range between probably $1.08 to probably as high as $1.21. So that also would have impacted the activity in the marketplace. And I think even though the IPO was highly successful, it was well oversubscribed, there was not a lot of fanfare and talk about it in the media space, especially surrounding post allotment leading into its first day of trading. So those would have impacted it. But largely, firstly, I think that the investing public just did not have that much investable fund.
And I think there's also a point to be made about interests, because this is a company that not many people knew of or ever even heard of before this IPO.
Exactly, yes. And well, it provides diversification, which I welcome diversification. It's good. It's good for the portfolio, right? It's good for your long-term planning. And as I said, one cocoa, fool's basket, or don't put the eggs in one basket. This is a brand new entity. The closest to it, I believe, is perhaps Lab. Not so much. That is very, very high tech. 1GS. Lab is more total, media entity, right? So they're differentiated somewhat, but I think is the closest to it. And Lab is a much larger company also, right? That has engagement with various entities throughout the marketplace. So they were fairly known, but it provides diversification, which is important, and every portfolio needs that.
Another bit of news coming out today, Jillian, regards SSL. So SSL, there was an announcement by the finance minister that those clients of SSL will now be able to transfer their portfolios, I suppose, to other companies. And then two, on the government side, saying that the government will no longer have to be paying for SSL's operating expenses because they got some insurance payout. Do you think that both of these things or either of these things will impact investor confidence?
So the SSL situation is one that many have been watching very closely. And it has, I think, had an effect on persons and their confidence in investing in these brokerage firms to some extent, and maybe that even impacted what happened, as you mentioned earlier, with the IPO, maybe. But what I can say is that there's always room for persons to get back in their investment spirits. This is just one IPO for the year, and this is one brokerage house out of all of the others who are still performing well. I know persons are interested in hearing from Mrs. Street Forrest on what her take is on investor confidence as well. So it may have impacted investor confidence, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, let's look at some of our scheduled topics for this evening. And yes, I'm looking forward to Mrs. Street Forrest later on. And I see she just popped in backstage and the device seems to be working now. So we can expect a robust conversation with her in maybe in about 15 minutes or so. But first, let's look at the local markets. So Clive, Scotia Group continued to witness strong results, delivering solid profit outturns and even commendable segment performances up to the end of its 9-month period in July. What led to this growth for Scotia Group?
Interestingly, long before there was COVID, long before this, the international global situation, the commodities issue that resulted in, the interest rate, the new global interest rate regime, long before that, Scotia had begun some restructuring, strategic long-term restructuring and reorganization, and they began consolidation, they began cost-cutting, they began looking at their long-term objective and what products they offer, what services they offer. So they began streamlining, efficiencies, all that long before that. So I think they were in a position, their balance sheet especially was in a position to kind of absorb some of the blow of this new high interest rate, raising of interest rate, the policy rate. So they were in a particular position. Also, I think we have heard financial companies talk about retooling in the sense of the application of technology. I won't say they're one of the first, but they have been very verbal and I would say on time in delivering some really very creative access to their client base through technology. And that again has helped them to reduce their costs, but also to re-engage their client base, right? For example, I'm one of their clients and I can tell you some of the tools that they now have and I can use easily to access and do business is just great. I think I'm doing a little bit more activity now than I was perhaps a year and a half or so ago. So that in terms of its total structure, it has done a lot to improve. Now, of course, we know that also Scotia is fundamentally is good. We have seen their loan book. We have seen mortgage, insurance doing well. We know that they sold some entities, right? So they have really, expanded their cash balance through those activities. But also, Scotia has continued to pay dividend. The market is, I think, the psychology. There's a shadow over the whole economy, especially the financial institution, listed financial entities, and that is the high interest rate regime that we're experiencing now. And I think that is impacting the performance of every financial company we know, including a Scotia, that fundamentally I think is one of the strongest financial companies, listed financial entities now. And consistently paying dividends, consistently rewarding the shareholder. Albeit they paid a little less earlier this year, but they're paying much more now. Certainly not what they were paying 3-4 years ago, right? But they are consistent in paying dividend. And because the price is low, the yield is significantly higher, perhaps more than twice it was 3-4 years ago, right?
Oh.
So yes, so the stock really is very favorable, but it is impacted by the overall performance of the market. That cycle that the market is enduring right now impacts every single security, including good stocks. An economist, Samuelson, once said on the reverse side that, in times of when economies are doing well and the market is doing well, even poor stocks will do well, and every reckless fool can look like a good financier. Well, the reverse is true, that the good companies, the strong companies, well thought out, good strategy going forward, that have leaned up their financial statements, right, has good cash flow, will not perform as well, in a market, in a down market. And I think that is impacting Scotia. Yeah. But however, the recommendation is prices are as cheap as they will probably be in the next 5-6 years. They say that these cycles, international cycles, occur probably about every 10 years. Maybe you might have some local domestic cycle crisis also. However, if you look at the last several years, we have had 2008. I'm not sure I've had a big global cycle until, of course, COVID, right? But use that as an example. Prices are very cheap now. Results are, even quite a few financial companies are good, fair to good. So I don't think you will get prices at this level in perhaps the next 5-6 years. So we encourage everyone to begin to buy, incrementally.
So where Warren Buffett said, be greedy when others are fearful.
Exactly.
And fearful when others are greedy.
Exactly.
Now is a time when most people are fearful.
So, interestingly, in our meeting, we have a little Monday morning meeting with our, team. And I said, look here, when the Chris Brown thing was going, you cannot go to one of these microfinancial agencies and borrow the 1.5 million and buy stocks. They won't know if you got the Chris Brown's issue or not. Right? But prices are very cheap now.
Well, I mean, if you were to do that, at least there's some collateral, because you can use the stocks as collateral. You can't use the experience of Chris Brown as collateral if you borrow the money for that purpose.
Exactly. And if you think long term, just looking at the performance of the market in the past, if you think long term, remember, our economy, the structural part of economy is fairly stable. The fiscal part, that is, right? So once interest rates starts trending downward, especially the financial entities, we expect a quick and strong recovery. So, but the horizon should still be long term. That is within, we think, 3-5 years time, right? You should get back a generous return, far in excess of whatever interest you perhaps would have been paying on that, supposedly the 1.5 million Chris Brown show money, right? So put the money in investment. Sacrifice.
Okay. So let's look at the macro economy now. And this is where Jillian comes in. Jamaica has received its best credit rating ever. We're now at BB-. This is from Standard & Poor's, up from B+ internationally. And for those of you who are wondering, how is B- better than B+? It's a BB-. So they have Standard & Poor's has this rating system that goes from D all the way to AAA+. So in the B range now, you start at B-, B, B+, then you go BB-, BB, BB+, then you go BBB-, BBB+, then you get into the A range. So BB- is better than B+. This is our best international credit rating ever since Standard & Poor's started rating us in 1999. Jillian, what will this do for our outlook, and how did the government even achieve this?
So the government I'll answer your second question first. The government achieved this through prudent fiscal responsibility. I'll give you a scenario or an analogy if you're looking at it in comparison to your personal finances. So for me, maybe a few years ago, or somebody that maybe a few years ago, they got into some financial trouble. They spent more than they earned. They weren't able to pay their bills in time. And this affected their personal credit score. To give you a scenario that is similar to what we're discussing now. So their personal credit score was terrible. Nobody wanted to lend to them. Whenever they were borrowing money, they were borrowing at a high rate. And the terms and the attractiveness of people who wanted to lend to you, you weren't very attractive as a borrower because you have a history of paying your credits poorly or having a terrible history of repaying your debts. So just like a person with a personal credit score, the country Jamaica has a credit score which can either aid them and help them to open up opportunities, or it can hurt them and cause them to have to pay more for borrowing to pay for things that are important to our country. And this can have effects throughout the entire economy. I'll give you an example of a few. So with an improved credit rating, you can borrow at lower interest rates on the international market. So if we are, as a country, are paying less on our debts, it leaves us with more money for other things like building roads, healthcare, security, education, and infrastructure. So we'll have more money to do all of those things. The second thing is that we'll just have access to better financial opportunities. So if my credit rating is an an E, for example. When I go to Scotia, Scotia doesn't want me. When I go to JMMB doesn't want me. They're not lending to me. So I have to go to the loan shark or the payday loan, because those are the only people that will lend to me. As my credit score improves now, if I turn into an A or a B, then all of a sudden I see these emails coming in from Scotia. I see these emails coming in from JMMB. I don't have to go to them anymore. They are coming to me. They want to come to me, and they want me to borrow from them because they know that my credit rating is good and I'll pay back the money. So they will lend to me at very attractive rates, very low interest rates.
Compared to the loan shark.
Exactly. The loan shark now, he's doing add-on interest rates, and you can research what that is. Add-on interest, and the rate is 20, 30, 40%. Where now I'm going to my local bank, and my local bank is giving me 5%, 10% because I have a good credit history. All right. So that Jamaica now has opportunities where they are in a position to attract what's called foreign direct investment. And that can help us to stimulate the economic growth and help us to improve on the things I mentioned before. We have increased capital to spend on expenses, expansion of businesses, etc. So there are more opportunities for the local population when we have better credit score, when we have a better credit rating internationally. Right. It can also assist with improving our financial situation, and improved credit score allows us to be more stable, economically stable, financially stable. And in times of crisis, we have a better chance of weathering unexpected expenses. Just like in your personal situation, if an emergency comes up and you need to borrow some money quickly, you have a better chance of getting that emergency taken care of because you have a good image out there in the public that your credit rating is good. So Jamaica, same thing.
I like your point about foreign direct investment, because a lot of people look at credit scores and say, oh, it's only good for borrowing money, but not necessarily. Yes, it can give you better terms on borrowing, but it also allows outside investors to look at your country and say, this is a stable economic environment that I want to invest in. So if you, Jillian, have a business and you have a good credit score, you can use that to borrow money, but also you can use your credibility to attract investors to your business. And so that's the same thing that would happen to Jamaica on a macroeconomic environment on a larger scale. That foreign investors can look at us and say, okay, double B minus, not too bad, better than some of your peers in the region. Maybe we should put some money into this country because this economy is fairly stable. So what does this do for our outlook now?
So Jamaica's outlook, it's very clear that a lot of work has been done by the government and the finance ministry to get us in this position across many administrations. We've come a long way, and I think it will only continue to go up as we express, or as we continue to be fiscally responsible and we continue to clear our debts and continue to repay our debts on time. Then it will allow us to move into the investment grade on the scale that you were discussing earlier, the A's. And once we get there, it opens up so many opportunities for individuals, businesses, and the country as a whole. The highway that just opened up, that's one. We would probably have 5 highways in a year. If the
carpet, as Nigel calls it.
Yes, the carpet will be quite clean on the roads. All right. So there's a lot. We can't even begin to fathom how the things could change for us as a country. Our healthcare can improve. Our infrastructures will improve as well. There's so many opportunities for us to grow if we continue on this path.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Thank you, Clive, for your perspectives this evening.
No problem.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
That's it for the analysts. Coming up in just a few, we'll have tonight's poll question.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
Top 5 places to meet rich men in Jamaica. Number 5, we're coming in at AC Hotel Lounge / Bar. If you go here, you'll meet a lot of nice professional men who have jobs within the corporate area, whether in business, finance, or governance.
So this was a pretty accurate video. He gave some good places, but he actually missed one. Shh. You want to know where? It's the Money Mission community. That's where all the money people go to talk about money and figure out ways to make even more money. All right, now it's time for tonight's poll question, and it has to do with NCB. What are your thoughts on NCB seeking to raise funds through an additional public offer, an APO? Why at this time? B, I'm excited to invest in this opportunity. C, is there more going on that the public doesn't know? D, doesn't seem like a good move. Or other, leave a comment. What are your thoughts on NCB's APO? Up next, it's time for your hurricane tip from our sponsor, CG United.
Hurricane tips are brought to you by CG United. It's good like that.
Not your house, still your problem. If you are renting, you may not have to worry about property insurance, but you're likely to still have valuable items that you own inside your apartment or your rental home. You can still purchase insurance to cover your belongings even if you don't own your home. If your contents are not insured, prepare a detailed list of everything in your home and their value, get a quote, and get insured. And hear this, the cost of contents insurance is usually less than the cost of a smartphone. That's your hurricane tip brought to you by CG United.
Hurricane tips were brought to you by CG United. It's good like that.
Reminding you to hit the like button. Where's my like police this evening? Hit the like button. Up next, we've got your market recap, and we have Mrs. Street Forrest standing by.
This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, Insurance Made Easy.
Hey moneymakers, join the KRM fam with our official merch. Get it now at KalilaReynolds.com. Let's get this money.
The JSE Combined Index lost over 5,000 points or 1.5% last week. 122 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, September 15, 2023. 51 made gains, 58 lost value, and 13 stayed the same. 98 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $702 million. Key Insurance was the week's most traded stock. It took up 32% of market volume with 33 million shares trading. The stock gained 27 cents to open Monday at $2.77. Trans-Jamaican Highway traded at the second highest. The stock gained 3 cents to open this week at $2.63. And Wigton rounded out last week's most traded with 6 million shares changing hands. The stock lost 4 cents to open Monday at 70 cents. Now let's see who had the biggest gains for the week. First Rock Real Estate Investments, USD, was the market's biggest gainer. The stock soared 67% to open Monday at 7 cents US. ISP Finance Services was up 32% to start the new week at $44.95. And Cargo Handlers was up 20% to open the week at $16.38. On the losing side now, JPS 7% was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost $13 to open Monday at $42. PBS 10.5% perpetual cumulative redeemable was the week's second biggest loser, opening the new week at $1,020. And Siboney was down almost 14%, closing last week at $1.12. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index gained 1% last week. Massey was the most traded stock. The stock gained 36 cents to open this week at $4.98 TT. Angostura Holdings was the biggest gain of the week. The stock was up 15% to start the new week at $22.99 TT. And on the losing side, Port Lisa's Industrial Port Development fell 7% to open Monday at $3.15 TT. Over in the US, the Dow Jones was mostly stable last week, while the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq were down about 1%. At the pumps, the price of 87 gas rose $2.87 last week, while 90 was up $3.07. Diesel prices rose $4.50. In foreign exchange, it took an average $155.60 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 15 cents more than a week before. Meanwhile, it took an average $115.30 Jamaican to purchase $1 Canadian. One British pound cost on average $195.17 Jamaican. And you could buy €1 for $168.20 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices rose almost 3% over the past 5 days, trading at $26,920 US on Monday, while Ethereum was up almost 2%, trading at $1,638 US on Monday. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
And let me also mention once again our sponsor, Bulwark Insurance Agency, since we had to switch things around. So they're actually the sponsor for this particular segment. Let's welcome Marlene Street Forrest to the show. She is the managing director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Hi, Mrs. Street Forrest. Welcome back to Taking Stock.
Thank you for having me, Kalila.
Glad to have you back, especially given the technical issues you were experiencing earlier. So I'm glad you could make it and sort it out.
That's right. I'm glad that we were able to sort that out.
Yes. So this year has been a pretty rough one for the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and by extension, well, the entire economy, the entire market is down. The JSE is down about 13% year to date, if I remember correctly.
11%. 11%.
Yeah. 11, okay. Mm-hmm. And so far, there's only been one IPO this year.
Two.
Which two?
We just had one today, One Great Studio.
Which other one was this year?
And there was another. So it's two. It's two IPOs.
No, man, December. The last one was in December.
No, not at all. We have had two IPOs this year.
You'll have to remind me what that was, because my memory is telling me
I'll tell you in a minute.
Or perhaps the listing occurred in January and the actual, the IPO and the share of the sales and so happened in December. But I remember December.
Okay.
Anyway, we can check that.
So Image Plus Limited was listed on January 20.
Okay, yeah, Image Plus was the one. I remember that happening around the Christmas period. So the listing didn't take place until January in my mind, because the IPO.
Exact, yes.
Right. All right. So anyway, how does the JSE plan to turn things around in this difficult environment?
Well, Kalila, as you know, the JSE is a conduit for market activities. So the fact is that things will turn around based on various inputs. So let us look at some of the things that would prevent or has happened to have this market that we are having. We are having obviously a bear market. Some of the elements, high interest rate is one area. People have options, and on a short term, they will look at securities or instruments that are yielding higher. So that is a fiscal decision, and we are hoping that the interest rate will trend down in a little while, remain stable. I see that, and then trend down a little while. Obviously, we have had also problems with some amount of confidence in the market, and that will stabilize. The Financial Services Commission obviously will be working towards that. And as you know, the Jamaica Stock Exchange continued to be relevant in terms of confidence building and how we obviously project ourselves in the market to our stakeholders. So those are two issues. And as I said, the third is the option to seek other instruments. When those things are corrected, let us use that word, you will see a return of investors to the market. the market there is an inverse relationship between a high interest rate and the market performance. Now, we expect, though, that in the interim, I listened to Mr. Charlton speaking. In the interim, there are many stocks that are there that are undervalued. And we expect that our brokers will be working with young investors, many of them who would have not looked at the long-term horizon, and to say to them, get back in the market. So these are some of the things that we believe will ensure that when this, throughout this cycle, we get back into normal market activities.
You mentioned earlier the issue of investor confidence. Of course, we
Yes.
had the SSL scandal in January. It's very early in the year, setting the pace for the year. To what extent has that impacted investor confidence, and what role does the JSE play in trying to rectify that situation?
Well, while I cannot tell you a percentage, anything that is negative in the market is going to impact on investor confidence. To what degree, I'm not going to be able to say to you. But the stock exchange has been quite clear in speaking to the fact that we regulate the market. We sound the signal where there are persons or dealers that are not contributing in terms of the best practices. So we continue to do this. Investor confidence is not only about how brokers perform or lack thereof. It is also about how we also manage the market from a risk-based situation. So obviously, the Jamaica Stock Exchange has been dealing with ensuring that internal competencies during this time are improved. We talk about things like data protection and cybersecurity, etc. So the market continues to provide the necessary information also for companies and individuals to make informed decision. That's what a market is there for, to be fair, efficient, and transparent in what it is doing in respect to providing support for
SSL is not a publicly traded company, right?
No, SSL is not a publicly traded company. SSL,
right, they are not. They are not. So the question now is, what, if any, role does the JSE play in dealing with brokers, or is that only the purview of the FSC, the Financial Services Commission?
No, not at all. Remember now that the Jamaica Stock Exchange does regulate its brokers and also the companies that are listed. And so some of the things that we look for is market infractions. We look for whether their net free capital is adequate, and we look for whether they are filing, because they not need to file with us their financial statements, etc. So obviously things like lateness of filing of financial statements, as I said, about capital adequacies, etc. We look for, that's part of our rules through the regulatory and market oversight division, and we interface with the member dealer in respect to these particular requirements in the JSE's rules. Now, also we interface, as you know, the FSC is our regulator, and so in matters that are of concern to the Jamaica Stock Exchange in its review, we refer those matters also to the Financial Services Commission for their follow-up.
To what extent do you enforce those regulations? And do you have the manpower to enforce them? Because that capital adequacy requirement that you mentioned was one of the red flags cited for SSL multiple times leading up to what happened. It was not the cause of what happened and what was exposed in January, but it was a red flag.
And Kalila, that's a good question, because where the we see anything like this, we work with the company. The company is supposed to provide us with information as to how they will address it, and there is a particular period of time within which they are given to address those concerns. And any member dealer that falls within that area actually complies with the Jamaica Stock Exchange rules to provide the necessary support as it relates to that particular area. So it is something that we police, and we have good responses from member dealers when it does happen.
And do you have the resources to adequately police that?
We do. That is something that we do on a monthly basis, because all our member dealers, we have 13 member dealers, all our member dealers must submit their financial statements to us on a timely basis. And there is resources dedicated to looking at that aspect of the companies or the brokers' operations.
Which brings me to how you also treat with listed companies. So you have,
Yes.
a way that you deal with member dealers, member brokers, and then you also have listed companies that are required to submit financial statements to the JSE quarterly as well. As we speak, we have one company, iCreate, that trading has been suspended because of multiple breaches of those deadlines. So at what point do you say, we need to step in here and do something, because there have been complaints about iCreate for a while?
Kalila, I am not going to get into individual listed companies, but I can say, generally speaking, there is a rule in respect to how many days after the non-submission of financial statements that the JSE takes action in terms of suspending that company, and then how many days after that the JSE takes in actually delisting that company. Now, if you will recall, and we know context is everything, that all companies, all listed companies, were given up until when we discontinued at the beginning of the year, additional time to submit their audited financial statements. It's not only iCreate, but others, because of what transpired during the COVID period, and the backlog and pressures on audit companies to complete the audited financial statements. So yes, it would look as if there was protracted time given to the company that you would have just mentioned, but the timelines were in keeping with the JSE's rules and the additional time that was given to all companies to submit their financial statements.
So how many chances do you give a company before you say, you know what, we have to take some action?
It is in rules. It is rule based. So there is a matter of 90 days after the company should submit its financial statements, and if it doesn't, then the company is up for suspension. There may be extenuating circumstances, but generally and applied, that the company would be suspended from trading until the information is provided to the stock exchange. So what we have is rules rule based.
Are there any other companies right now that you've been keeping an eye on because they've been consistently late with these filings?
We have companies that are late in filing financial statements, and audited financial statements in particular is what we are generally keeping our eyes on now, because the percentage is around compliance is around 70% compliance. And obviously, that figure needs to go up. Now, when you compare that 70 to when the companies were given an additional time because of COVID.
Wait, you said 70 as in 70 or
70.
17? Okay, good.
70.
It frightened me.
Not 17, 70.
70, got it.
Yes, 70%. You will probably see that during the point of where we gave additional time to submit, that would have been about 80%, 85%. It is down now where we have pulled the additional, the extra time that we have given. So that is what we are having our eyes on at this point. I must say that the quarterly financial is around 92% compliant in terms of companies submitting their financial statements. Where we have some challenge, obviously, is first quarter if the audited financials are late. Now, based on the fact that the audited financials are where we are at the 70%, it stands to reason also that the annual report is around that same percentage. So that is what the RMOD would be keeping its eyes on now on a general basis.
Okay, we have some questions from our viewers, so let's start taking some of those, starting with Marvin. Marvin says, good night. I want to hear about the shorting Mrs. Street promised last time she was here. Quite a few people asking about that, the introduction of short listing.
Okay.
Short selling, sorry.
So do you want me to address that now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so short selling, as you know, is a complex, and I'm going to tell you, it is a complex, and it's not a complex action, but it's a complex environment to set up. Now, where we are, even as we speak today, we were reviewing the rules relating to short selling, both from the standpoint of trading of these securities, as well as the lending and borrowing system that we must put in place in order to have an orderly and a standard market. So those rules we anticipate will be with our Financial Services Commission by the end of this year. Obviously, we are aiming for by the end of October. Now, the Financial Services Commission is going to take some time to review those rules. The other areas, so I'm going to be granular so that persons understand. The other area is the lending and borrowing system as it interfaces with other systems in the Jamaica Central Securities Depository and our trading system. That we are in testing mode as we speak, along with our brokers. So you see, we are well advanced in delivering the short selling to you by the end of first quarter 2024. So that is the update on this. We want to ensure that you have confidence in us when we implement. It is not the easiest environment to be established. You would have seen that even in more advanced markets like the United States and Australia. So the fact is, I'm happy where we are. We're at a good place. And by 2014 first quarter, we should be able to turn that switch on.
I recall a conversation I had with one of your team members on this
Yes.
program, giving us an update as well. And one of those rules and one of the issues that needed ironing out at the time is which companies you will be allowed to short sell, because not all companies have enough liquidity. Not all companies trade a lot. And so is that one of the issues that you've ironed out already? Like, have you decided which, like, what list of companies, what criteria will there be for you to be able to short sell a company? Or is that something that still needs to be worked
No, there
on?
are parameters that I won't go into at this point, but we do have the parameters to in order to determine the companies that will be a part of that basket. I want to put it that way. And liquidity, remember now, short selling is in order to increase liquidity. So that is not necessarily a big point in respect to the companies that would be we will have trading in the first instance, because that is one of the things that advantage of short selling. But there are parameters, and those are rule based, will be rule based. Those are some of the things that we would have been reviewing in respect to our rules.
The next question comes from Cheesy Gully Side, who says, we're still waiting for that USD trading on the JSE. Not quite a question, but I can phrase it as a question. What's the update on having that
USD
capability?
trading on the JSE? We do
The
have
trading of US stocks, I think, is what he means.
we
So
do
currently you
have
do the
US
Canadian.
US securities that are denominated in US trading on the JSE. But
No,
let
that's
me
not what he means.
that's not what he means. He might mean that the having access to
To the US
purchasing
market.
the US market. That
Right.
is in place. That's the direct market access is the vehicle through which the stocks investors can purchase stocks, either US or Canada. We started, Kalila, with Canadian stocks, and one of the member dealer who is active in that space at this point is QMax, and we are now in the process of identifying the second party, I would say, that we will be working with in respect to the US market, as well as putting in place with our IT service provider any other probably market specifics that they will need in terms of the US market. But I'm happy to say that the DMA has been launched, and has been launched with starting with the Canadian market. So the person online probably would want to just check on the broker that I have just called in order to access that market. We had a seminar recently, and we were pleased, even with persons who have said how they have benefited tremendously from that, from having bought Canadian stocks to add to their portfolio. As it relates to the US now, the US leg, that will be in place before the end of the year. We are working assiduously to ensure that that comes on before the end of the year.
Okay. Next question comes from Alex Stewart. Alex says, what measures are being done to make it easier to fund your JTrader Pro account than in-house deposits? What about online linking, to our financial institution of choice?
Okay, and that's a good question. I think we had spoken to that at one point, Kalila, and as we are going into a phase now where the JTrader Pro will be, although we have done some enhancement to the JTrader Pro, that is an area that the market is calling for, and we are now seeking again to do a further enhancement to that to allow for an easier, I would say, payment gateway, so to speak. Yes.
Here's a follow-up question from Christopher on the direct market access that we were just discussing.
Sure.
He says, is it good timing to expand direct market access to other markets outside of Jamaica in 2024? The Jamaican stock market is so down. Why not enhance activity on the local market and build it back up?
Well, the fact is that the market is down, and we expect that the market will come back up, but we have to put in place, I think it is only right that we look at how to assist, and this is something that investors have asked for, assist in an orderly way in diversifying person's portfolio. And it is really a matter of edging also for your portfolio. So it's not either or, it's not, and the timing is not an off timing. It's a good timing. We expect that the market, having come through this cycle, and we are expecting that interest rate will at some point soon trend down. Obviously, markets take a time to respond to that, but all in good time that 2024 would see a combination of both, where our stock market is back, and also encouraging others to come into the market in this manner in respect to putting some foreign securities in their portfolio. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right. Diversification is the name of the game.
That's correct.
I see quite a few people asking about extending trading hours, because here the trading day ends at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. So Alex wants to know if trading hours will be expanded. Some investors have jobs that may limit adequate time to make investments due to limited hours for trading on the market.
The fact is that where you go to JTrader, Alex probably knows that he can put in his bids, and so after trading ends. But if we're talking about the having access to one's broker directly, that is something we are looking at. Volume, value, number of transactions are now down. As you probably had said earlier, Kalila, our value is down year over year, 40%, or volume is down a little over 30, and the number of transactions just a little over 20%. And so when you would speak to the brokers, when you poll the brokers, it's a mixed sentiment as to whether they think that the market should be extended or not. That is a question that we will be bringing up again in our the end of September's meeting with our brokers, because it is not anything that is difficult for the stock exchange, I must tell you, nor for the JCSD. With the technology that we have, it's just a matter of changing the parameters to allow for longer trading hours, and the settlement goes where that goes.
So why does it end at 1 o'clock?
It ended at 1 because just historically, it used to end even before. It ends at 1 because there are two things. The volume and the activities did not warrant us going beyond that. There are pre-market activities and post-market activities as you know, that a broker does in order to for end of day activities, just like a bank, etc. There are those reconciliations, etc. So there is time that the broker community, the back office is needed to wrap up. However, I'm clear that there is a space to extend the hours. So it is really now a further dialogue with our member dealer community to see how to treat with that from their standpoint. Because as you have heard me say, in terms of technology, it's not anything that we can't do. In terms of also our own operations, back office operations, we can extend that those hours.
Okay. Well, I hope it happens. Let's see if it actually does. If enough people call for it, perhaps it could be made a priority. So I see some questions as well about listings. We spoke about the number of listings being very small for this year. We just had one GS, and in January we had why do I keep forgetting the name of this company? Image Plus.
Right. But let me
Consultants
just
listing.
correct you on that though, Kalila, because since the year we have had 11 listings. We have had 2 IPO, initial public offerings, right? But we have had listings on our bond market, and we have had listings on our private market. So I just want to give the full picture in terms of listings.
And you have the social IPO as well.
And that is coming up, but that is from the standpoint of the social stock exchange. But talking about from the standpoint of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, we have had 11 listings, but 2 IPOs. Last year, this time, we would have had 6 listings, and the full year would have had 12 listings comprised of main market listing, IPOs, listing on the bond market, and listing on the private market. So, but people love to hear about the IPOs, and we have only had 2 IPO listings since the start of the year.
When did you start the bond market?
Yes, the bond market.
No, when did you start the bond market? Was it last year?
The bond market, 2009, 2010, probably.
Oh, from then.
It's still quite nascent. But that is something that we are trying to push in terms of those persons being interested. And also we are gonna be we are anticipating that the listing of Government of Jamaica securities will take place next year. So again, it is just broadening the suite of products.
Wait, when you say Government of Jamaica securities, what are you referring to?
Government of Jamaica bonds.
Bonds.
2024, 20, whatever, those securities that are issued by the government of Jamaica. And
some people might have heard that and got excited that it's the JPS long anticipated IPO divestment.
I wish I am as hopeful as you that we will see the ordinary shares, because as you know, the preference shares are listed for some long time now on the stock market. But we would love to see the 20%. Well, we list 100%, but we'd love to see that the ordinary shares of JPS are listed, and we have no control over that except to encourage and facilitate.
Right. So you did mention though that you've had 11 listings for the year, but only 2 IPOs, and IPOs are the ones that are the most sexy. They get the most attention.
Correct.
How many? Do you have any other IPOs expected for this
Yes,
year?
we are expecting that we should have, and you are going to ask me the names, and I'm not going to reveal.
I know you can't tell me
Um,
the names.
so we are expecting that there would be one other IPO at least, and then there would be another early January. So there are two in the works that we expect between now and the end of the year. But if it falls over, that they have to get approval and no objection from the Financial Services Commission, etc. So it depends on how that pans out. We
Junior
would
market
have,
or main market?
if it is
Junior or main market?
junior market,
Both?
yes.
Okay. Okay. I won't press you any further than that. I know because I could go as the financial sector, M&D, which sector, but we can leave it at that.
No,
That's as much
not
hints
at
as we
all. I
can
don't
take.
even know if that would be considered for the FSC as priming the market. So I just give you as I have it.
Okay. Okay. 2 junior market IPOs expected in the next few months.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Mrs. Street Forrest. I appreciate you making the time to come.
It was indeed a pleasure to be on, Kalila.
And we look forward to end of year review, 2024 review, and seeing what's happening with the market in a few months' time. Thanks again.
It will be positive for next year. It takes some time. As you say, we have been here before. We are not daunted, and we continue to encourage investors to stay in market. It's long term. Stay in market and to invest more, as a matter of fact, during this period.
Okay, thanks again, Marlene Street Forrest here on Taking Stock. So let's take I'm not sure if we have a break since we reorganized the show this evening, or if I should just wrap up now. Let me see what we should do. No break. Okay, so that's it for tonight's show. But before we go, let me take a few comments. And I see quite a few in the chat, some of our final comments. Let's go back to the top. So talking about the 1GS listing today, Dale said it maxed out at $1. No, it didn't. There we go. 129 before it fell to 114. Yes, that sounds more like it. So I know there were some people who got upper 120s today in the 1GS trading. Deco says, why are you saying SSL pay the people them back for all the money for them rob up? Why is watches? Okay, I get it. It's patois. All right. Yeah, pay the people back their money. Got it. Dale says some companies have excellent results and their stock prices barely move. Wysinca grows revenues quarterly, sitting on $10 billion cash, but the stock price does not move. Also, remember, Wysinca pays good dividends. So there's also that. Ryan, what's Ryan saying? Ryan says, besides high interest rates set out by BOJ, the stock market does not seem favorable as everyone's heading over to the bond market. Also, it's back to school. It's a slow season, September to November. Dale pointing out that prices don't always rise, even with strong fundamentals and returns. Marlene wanted to know, can you invest in Jamaica from the US if you are Jamaican? Yes, you can. All you need to do is open an investment account here in Jamaica. If you have a local TRN, that makes it even easier. Some brokers will also accept other forms of ID, such as your social security. Deco says, how the credit score thing go? Jamaica, is it like the US with 600 and up? So I actually have a course inside the Money Mission community that explains credit scores. We have different credit ratings companies here in Jamaica, and there's not a consistent credit score. So in the US, if you have an 800 credit score, that's amazing. Here in Jamaica, it depends on which credit bureau you go to because they have different scales and they're not necessarily comparable. But I do have something inside the Money Mission community regarding understanding your credit report if you're interested in that. Shane says we're in a bear market, which is great. I guess great to buy low if you look at it that way. Dale says plenty of great buys are out there. Howard wants to know if there are any books for beginners that I'd recommend. I don't have a book, Howard, but I do have a course inside the Money Mission community. It's called Investing for Beginners, so you can check that out. Go to moneymission.mn.co. The link is also in the description. Let me see what else we have. Christopher wanted to know about establishing a micro market. I feel like I vaguely recall that suggestion being dismissed and the government saying they were no longer interested in doing a micro market. Robert wanted to know any update from the minister when the junior market limit will be increased. That is something that we should indeed follow up with the minister on the next time we, have him on. And then Garvin pointing out, there we go. Producer, put back the comment, please. Garvin pointing out cybersecurity is hot in the news now. We don't want to hear that the JSE gets hacked. Cybersecurity indeed being a huge, huge issue, as you guys know. I experienced that issue very recently myself as well. So yes, and we had major companies experiencing some issue with cyber attacks too. So I'm sure that is one thing that all major companies, not only major, large and small, because my business is relatively small, and we have to be spending money and making sure that we strengthen our cyber platforms, our cyber security. So for those of you who tuned in live, make sure you like this video. If you're watching this delayed, still like the video, subscribe to the channel and share with a friend. Make sure you're on our newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter. And for those who are asking about it, like which broker you can sign up with, new email subscribers get a copy of my free broker guide. And that will give you all the updates and all the comparisons between all the brokers. Remember to turn on the post notifications so you can be the first to see everything when it drops, because we want to help people learn more about money and get this money together. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kalila Ray. And remember, that's my only account. I don't have any backup accounts. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box for their contact information. And you can also visit KalilaReynolds.com for financial information you can use however you like it. You can watch this video. You can listen to the podcast version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora. We're on like all of them basically. And you can also read articles. I also want to encourage you to tell a friend about taking stock, because investing is the new sexy. So let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Thanks for watching and see you next week.
Let's get this money.